Welcome to Working Smarter, Concise Compliance Conversations featuring Wendy Rubis, sponsored by VillageMD, primary care physicians. Practice medicine the way you've always wanted. Data, resources, and clinical decision support to care for your patients inside and outside the exam room.
Hi, welcome to Working Smarter. I'm Wendy Rubis, General Counsel at VillageMD. And I'm so happy to be with Amanda Skerski today. Amanda is the head guru of our marketing at VillageMD. How are you, Amanda?
I'm terrific. Thank you for having me, Wendy.
And so, Amanda, we're here to talk about something today that gets my phone ringing many times. And it's the reason we have you here, which is it used to be in the good old days, you had a lady who took phone calls of upset patients. We called her the patient advocate, patient representative. Today, of course, everybody goes online. Many times they go online before they ever tell you. And so online reviews, they can be great, but as you know,
they can be terrible.
Terrible, yes. And so today we're going to just give, just a few tips on what to do about the terrible review. And, I've had physicians call me over the years with some very devastating things. Of course, Amanda, the natural comment to make is, if you have a pattern of negative reviews, I'm sure when you do marketing strategies, you remind people that maybe they need to look into.
If you have a pattern of negative reviews that are genuine reviews, there might be an opportunity to step back and look at how you're conducting yourself.
Right. And, it's funny because my kids who are used to reviews on everything they buy and everything, they're very sophisticated about knowing what's real in reviews.
We can assume that of the general public. Folks know when there's an axe to grind versus someone who's leaving a genuinely constructive criticism.
But for purposes of today, we'll just assume it's an untrue or highly abrasive, damaging review. And in fact, some reviews can be so damaging that just one can really hurt. We have, if you're watching along, we have some reviews up here that we saw, and it's hard not to laugh. And by the way, these are not VillageMD physicians, okay? These are random on the internet. But here's one that said, quote, "Do whatever you can to go somewhere else." It's not funny, but it's a little bit funny. Or here's one, "Dr. So-and-so is disrespectful and has been late to all caps, every single appointment I've ever had." Which again, not good. So the question that people get, that I get by the time they call me, they're not looking for a strategy of marketing, Amanda. They're asking me, what can I do? And many times the first question is, I want to sue. Everybody wants to sue for libel and slander. And if you Google it, then you know what it is. So everybody tells me, I want to sue. And the bottom line is, can you sue? If I had to say a short answer, probably not. Because it's very difficult to sue based on feedback on one of these websites. It's not impossible. And you do read about cases every now and then where someone was sued over an online review that was malicious. But for the most part, that's really not a remedy. I don't know if you've ever had an experience with that.
It's a lot of expense, a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Sometimes it raises the profile of the situation.
Yeah.
It's often not worth the investment of time and money.
Exactly right. But there might be other things that you can do. And this is where we've seen changes in the law and even changes in the marketplace over the last year or two. When a lot of these sites were brand new, they were very stubborn and dug in about working with you. But obviously the very first thing to do is just to call the host of the site and just ask them to take it down. Years ago, that was harder, but I think that they're a little bit more flexible, Amanda, and they will work with you.
Yes, we've seen a lot more flexibility than in years past, that if it's not a legitimate concern, they'll have the conversation and sometimes they will take it down.
They sometimes will, and especially if these are just outlier, very salacious. So if you're working with VillageMD and you have a problem like that, give us a call and we'll be able to help you. Sometimes it's effective to have that call come from a lawyer, but many times they will work with you. Obviously, the second thing is, you see this on TripAdvisor and some other Yelp and things where people respond to the concern. Now, in healthcare, you have to be careful not to breach HIPAA. We have an example, if you're watching along, of a HIPAA breach. No offense to this anonymous surgeon, but the response here goes into some detail about the case, which would be a violation of HIPAA, even though I realize that's hard to take. If someone makes a misstatement about you to the press or in the public and you correct it with true information, if it's PHI, that is a HIPAA breach, and there are many, many examples of fines and penalties. Most significantly in Houston, Memorial Medical Center had a huge problem from correcting a misstatement in the press, and they were fined for it. So we do recommend a program to respond, but you have to be careful what you say. I don't know if you've seen this or ever had a program like this, Amanda.
Yes, sometimes it's frustrating because you want to defend yourself, but really the best course of action is to acknowledge the person's concern and direct them outside of this website for a discussion. So you can ask them to contact you via email or by phone or a representative so that the viewers can see that you are responsive, care about the care that you're giving and what people are saying, and want to provide great care while still protecting the patient's privacy.
What do you think about the sorry? This is an issue that I've dealt with many times, is when you say you're sorry, sometimes people interpret that to mean like you're responsible for things that you really aren't. You might mean, I'm sorry that was your experience. You don't necessarily mean I caused you that harm. Because you can see here in the example, there's an apology with the big S word, which doesn't roll off the tongue for some folks, but they did use it here. So what is your advice on that?
Right. I think a lot of people just want to be acknowledged. And sorry can be very powerful, but I think we need to be careful about what we're apologizing for.
Yes, agree.
To apologize for how they're feeling, because your intention is to never make someone feel some way, I think is always appropriate because people's feelings are valid. Apologizing for certain instances can be legally tricky.
Careful,
and can put you kind of at a disadvantage if you aren't aware of exactly what the situation is. So I think it's always all right to apologize that someone is feeling misunderstood, unheard, that their needs weren't met, but not to apologize for
an outcome, a fault, etc. No legal conclusions.
Yes.
So best thing is just to say, give us a call. Certainly having a response, as a person who looks at these websites, you feel better knowing, they said they're taking care of that.
And that they care.
Yeah,
Right.
Obviously, the third thing is a cease and desist lawsuit. But these are rare and not recommended. And that takes us to our next subject, which is, you might be surprised we're talking about Barbara Streisand. And our producer, Morgan, just asked me who Barbara Streisand is.
That was painful for me.
So we're going to have to get over that, Amanda, with our youthful glow. Sorry, Babs, if you're listening. By the way, Barbara Streisand, always welcome on the podcast.
Always welcome.
We would
love the work you do for women's heart disease.
We would love to talk to her. She's welcome, and I'm sorry that we're bringing this up. She may not come on now because we're talking about it.
But she is a true icon.
She is. So, but anyway, the point we're talking about is the Streisand effect, which is a well-known term, and it means don't overreact to the online post. And the example is she had her home, a picture of her home was posted on the internet. It was posted on a scientific website. They were doing, I think, some kind of ocean research, erosion, whatever. And there was I'm just making up a number, let's say 20 views, because frankly, people aren't really scouring the scientific websites. She felt that it damaged her safety because it was a picture of her home, and she sued. And as a result of that, every newspaper picked it up. They put the picture in the newspaper. We've got it on our little video here, and the hits went into the millions. And so that's now known as the Streisand effect. In an effort to suppress a juicy piece of information, don't make it worse.
And I don't think you can overstate the importance of that. Sometimes saying less or not responding is much better, and trying to handle things offline in a reasonable manner that doesn't escalate the situation and doesn't make people dig in is much more effective, because she got the exact opposite effect of what she was looking for.
Right. Another famous case, the Home Depot had a hater, and someone made an I Hate Home Depot website. And they responded to it, and then it just blew it up. And then everyone was like, ooh. It's almost like when you recall an email, then everybody goes back to see what it was.
Right. And it becomes fun to pile on.
Yeah, who doesn't love that? So don't overreact is the lesson. So the bottom line, our key takeaways: tend to your online personality, watch over it. It is important, and it can impact your business. If you have an inaccurate, salacious review, consider asking the host to remove it. If you work with VillageMD, we can help. Respond to the patient, but don't breach HIPAA. And try not to overreact. And no offense, Barbara, if you're listening, and again, you're welcome here anytime, but don't have a Streisand effect. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to our sponsor, VillageMD. We hope you will join us for future concise compliance conversations.